And we're live. It's the first time I noticed. Welcome, Melissa. Dr. Melissa Mahon is our guest today, second guest in a day, because we will be giving a few gaps in between. And welcome.
Thank
And
you so much.
thank you for being here. Dr. Melissa Mahon is a certified facilitator of access consciousness. All of my 23 guests are certified facilitators, and we are talking about different aspects of perspectives on presumptive and need of reactive realities. And you are an X-Men facilitator, right? X-Men
Yes, that's correct.
certified. Well, for those of you who don't know, you become a certified facilitator general, which gives you license to do private sessions, facilitate foundations and certain telecalls and calls. But there are also specialty classes like X-Men, and Dr. Melissa Mahon is X-Men certified facilitator as well. And I'm going to ask her actually her perspective on how presumptive realities and X-Men work. And I get that it's mostly about the people who are around X-Men have different presumptions, and I want to learn more about your perspective on what you see it as in regards to presumptions and reactions when X-Men are involved.
Yeah. So I actually did a call this morning, specifically on ADHD. And if
Mhm.
people aren't familiar, X-Men is this body of work within Access that kind of addresses the things that this reality might refer to as a disability. So OCD, ADHD, autism, and any other like things we look at as like mental disorders, like anxiety, depression, things like that, all sort of get looped into that also. And the topic of presumptive realities came up quite a bit when we were talking about ADHD today on this call I did, because
Mhm.
it was sort of like all the places from the time you're like a little kid where you're different and you perceive and receive information differently. And then your teachers, your parents, your siblings, whoever else in your life
Mhm.
impels all of these presumptions at you of what you can do, what you can't do, which you won't be able to do like other people. And then we buy that as a reaction, that need of a reactive reality,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh, well, they think I'm wrong because I'm not like this because I'm different. And then we react in the way that is projected upon you, that that's
Mhm.
what you will do, what you will be. And so that's kind of what shows up because X-Men are extremely aware. And X-Men really are just like, I mean, if we really kind of break it down, it's like humanoid extreme. And so it's like all the places that we are just enormously, like unbelievably aware of
Mhm.
everyone, everything, all, time, dimension, space, reality, all of that is right now. And
Mhm.
it's like if you're so aware of everything all at once, then if people are presuming that you're going to show up a certain way or have a certain problem or be late or lose things um or not understand the way that like a classroom functions, things like that, then we react accordingly, either
Mhm.
from a space of aligning and agreeing, where we show exactly what's been presumed at us, and that's our reaction, or we resist and react to it, and we get into this proving of, I will show you how I'm not wrong, and I will show you how I'm the same as everybody else, which continually leaves us in the space of the need of reactive reality rather than having what's really true for us.
Yeah, yeah. And that is such a disservice, and not celebrating our differences and everyone else around, everyone, the presumption of this reality, especially in education system, is that there is a certain structured way, and anyone who cannot fit into that structure is disabled or has a learning disability.
Right.
That is that we need to really change. And yesterday, I'm sure you must have been on the call. Dr. Dane here actually did a YouTube live and a Facebook live on, this month is also dedicated to autism and etc. And he did a live yesterday about how. Apart from the X-Men, which we call the autistic or anything around this spectrum, it may have been diagnosed or not. You may have been highly functional or not socially functional, and have this capacities that we call. And he was talking about how on both ends of this of the coin, like the parents make themselves wrong, like what did I do wrong, to have such a kid, or that I cannot have him fit into this reality, is a big presumption they function from, because it is learned as a fact, and also reflecting onto those X-Men kids. And in regards to that, can you also talk about the extreme awareness of X-Men kids and how they actually can be buying on our presumptions and reacting according to that?
Yeah, well,
And
it is that, and it's even so. I mean, we look at this a couple different ways because we look at the X-Men kids, right? Because that's what comes up
Mhm,
a lot, and a lot of times, it's the parents who show up in X-Men classes, but it's also acknowledging like one of the coolest things in doing X-Men classes is a lot of times the people who take the classes will be there for their kids, and then they get into
mhm.
class and realize how much they actually are X-Men themselves. And we think about autism as like the way that this reality has like is more like severe on the spectrum or
Mhm,
whatever. And then you get into class and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is actually the way I function also. I
yeah.
just might be like better at fitting in with human reality." And really X-Men are the mutation of the species to a higher order, to like something greater. And but so it's like we see these kids as like there's something wrong, or like you said, as parents we make ourselves wrong, like, oh, what did I do wrong to have this kid that's magic? But we
Mhm,
don't see it that way because they don't fit. We go into like all the presumptions at them of like, oh, they're wrong, I'm wrong, everybody's wrong, because we're like not normal, real, the same as everybody else. But there is such an extreme awareness, and so what shows up a lot of the times is the kids get this energy because
mhm,
energy is our first language. And especially kids like on the spectrum, or when you think of more like autism kids, are they're so aware of everybody's like projection at them on like how they're going to be, that presumption, the presumptive
mhm,
reality that they're going to have a problem, or that it's not going to be ease for them. And they actually pick up on like the energies in the room of, and not always
mhm,
just in the room, but of everybody on the planet and beyond. But certainly if they're in a classroom or in a room of family, like they're so aware of all the energies in the room. And often the energy that gets acted upon is like the most secret, hidden, unknown energy to everyone in the room. So like somebody can be in a room, like I'm thinking like holidays, right? Tomorrow's Easter.
mhm,
And like there'll be like the one like autistic kid in the room, and there'll be like some conflict going on that nobody's talking about, nobody's looked at, like it's kind of this hush hush thing in the family, but that kid will be so aware of it, and so they'll act on that energy because that's what they is like the loudest flashing energy in the room to them. So
mhm,
it's like, and then we're like, why are you in a bad mood or mad, or what's wrong? Because we might not see it, but they're
mhm.
so aware of like that loud energy in the room. So one of the greatest things you can be with them is be like, hey, like, what do you know?
Yeah.
What's true here? And even if they don't quite have words for it, there's always an energy, but the acknowledgement of like, what do you know? Like, what's actually like, what are you aware of that nobody else wants to be aware of? And even that acknowledgement can create so much space, but it's like we all have this presumption that
Yeah.
you're wrong, right? That like you, the kid, are wrong. And then that all like trickles out into the reaction of
Mhm.
what shows up.
Beautiful. And it would also on terms of parents who have the X-Men kids, autistic, dyslexic, or whatever it is, ADD, ADHD, ADD, for the parents, even when there is a parent, as I observe, that they're so understanding, they know the energy, they can speak the energy. But when, let's say, grandparents are involved and other people in the society are involved, and they start judging or presuming things that are not true for their children, they go into a protective mode.
Yeah.
What tool can you suggest them? to make this easy for them, ease in their world with their children and for their children.
Yeah. So one of the first things that happens when we like sense judgment like that is we sort of go into this like contracted space,
Mm-hmm.
or like our zone of awareness essentially collapses. And so it's like we go into this like contraction and like we get tighter. And so and that's like a natural reaction. So one of the greatest things to really play with is expanding out. And you can do that with your child. So
Mm-hmm.
even if like you can teach a child to expand out, but even if they're not like they're young or they're not in like a way to explain it cognitively, you can show them actually the energy of expanding out, and like being with them, you be that energy and you expand your zone of awareness and you expand that like to include them so that they have more space. Because as soon as we feel like, oh, I'm wrong and bad, even as a parent, the instinct is to like surround your kid, be like protective, but there is like um this energy of like anger or frustration, or like it creates this tension. But if,
Mm-hmm.
if you're collapsed, that tension has nowhere to go. So it's like you think about like all this energy in this like tight little box. And so it causes this like really uncomfortable um space. But it's like if you're willing to expand out, show your kid the energy of expanding out, it
Mm-hmm.
actually can create more ease for everyone. And then, especially at like family gatherings, things like that, as you're speaking, like get your kid outside if you can, if it's possible and they're, struggling or whatever, and families project, there's just all this energy.
Mm-hmm.
Go connect with earth, even for a minute, to like, hey, let's just go for a walk real quick. Like I have found that that is one of the quickest ways to like um re-regulate, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like your general being, really, because it's like you just pick up on everybody else's stuff in a room. And if you can get your kid yourself to connect to earth, go for a walk, even go stand outside for a minute, say I just need to get some fresh air, and to like go just connect to the earth. And you can even run restoration of communion with earth, which is a body process, but you don't have to like, I mean, you can just ask for it to run. Like it doesn't have to be like
Mm-hmm.
it's on process in those moments, and just ask for that energy to run. And that just creates this communion with earth,
Mm-hmm.
which brings us sort of out of this reality, like the like the quantum particulates that keep us like stuck. And
Mm-hmm.
it allows us to have that like acoustic wavelength uh,
Mm-hmm.
of what's true.
Beautiful. And I think you're also a clinical psychologist, right?
Yeah, that's true.
How different is that as an approach towards these X-Men kids, what we are talking about?
Yeah, it is really, really different than what this reality would teach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that's been like such an interesting exploration for me,
Yeah.
of like really getting beyond everything I was taught in school, and like being willing to like really use these tools with people and
Mm-hmm.
with their children. And I used to see kids, I still see like teenagers, and but really giving people like the awareness that they are different, and that's not
Yeah.
wrong. It's awesome.
It's
And
something to celebrate.
right.
Yeah.
Which is so cool and different. I actually just got a new client last week who was like coming to me for like ADHD stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and an adult, but like we were talking about like I was like, "Hey, like I will help you have more ease with this, but I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong and that you need to change this. Like how much fun can you have with this, and like use it for you as a capacity, rather than like how do I make myself bend, staple, and mutilate myself in a way to fit in with this reality? Like what if you didn't have to do that, and you
Yeah.
could have way more fun with the capacities that you have?" Which has been just a really, when you walk into a therapist's office, you don't expect them to be like, "Hey, there's actually nothing wrong with you." Like how do we actually just give you some tools to have more ease, is a totally different energy than like, let's figure out all the things that are wrong with you so we can fix you.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think you have also an X-Men class coming up at the end of April. I just saw it on the calendar.
Yeah, I do. I have an online X-Men class, April 29th. So that's going to be really fun. And because it's online, of course, you can join from all over the world,
Yeah.
and I'll have translation. And if there's any translation specifically required, well, we're still looking at like what translation to add. So
Yeah.
if you have a request for translation, let me know. And and I'm so excited. I love the X1 classes. They're so fun, and we just go to like the most beautiful energies of like really getting present with
Yeah,
what's true, and it's like really beautiful.
beautiful. That are one of my favorites too. I love it. And thank you, Melissa, for being here. And it was such a pleasure. And I think every parent should hear all these conversations. It needs to be reached out to more. What a gift this is. And thank you for being there. And thank you for doing those classes.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on today. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. See you later, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Let me see. Oops.